Welcome back to the ZX Spectrum Compilation Chart Challenge. Before we get into the review for episode 2, I thought I'd just give you a quick update on how my compilation collection is going. At the time of recording, I'm a little over 2 weeks into the project, and the collection has grown significantly. From 0 compilations at the start of the project to 46 compilations in less than 2 weeks. At this rate, I'm going to need a bigger shelf. The compilation we're going to look at in this video was released in 1988 by US Gold, and it's a collection of 4 arcade games, imaginatively titled Arcade Force 4. For the price of £9.99, you receive 3 Atari coin-op conversions, Gauntlet, including its Deeper Dungeons add-on, unless you were an unlucky ST owner, Roadrunner, and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, plus the Namco arcade hit Metrocross. It was also released on the Commodore 64, the Amstrad, and the Atari ST, and was advertised in the gaming press using this very busy advert. All 4 games are shown with their box art and screenshot, plus game blurb that probably didn't need to be quite so long. The ad tells you that the reflexes and powers of a mere mortal won't be enough if you accept the challenge of these chart-topping arcade conversions, and offering the slightly amended to avoid litigation, "May the Force go with you." All of this surrounds a striking but rather strange metallic logo, on which I still haven't worked out if it's 2 rows of golden ball bearings moving very fast towards you, or is it some copper pipes? Answers on a postcard? Right, so let's have a look at Arcade Force 4. It's got that nice packaging with that funny logo that I don't know if it's ball bearings or pipes, but it looks really nice on the cover. It's a bit busy on the advert, but I do like that. It's got the 4 games around, telling you that you get Gauntlet in the Deeper Dungeons, Roadrunner, Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom and Metrocross, and it's the most explosive combination of coin-op conversions ever assembled in one package. Bold claims. Around the outside we've got Arcade Force 4, we got the same grand statement, Arcade Force 4 again, and then we've got the barcode and what system it's for. On the back we get a screenshot of each of the games. We get plenty of 5 different US Gold logos to make sure we know who made it, and yeah, a little bit of blurb about each of the games. Some nice looking package. I think if I'd seen that on the shelves I'd be quite pleased. I'd have picked it up and had a look. Let's have a look inside. So inside we get a user manual and a nice plastic tray inside to hold your tapes, which I'm always a fan of. No rattling around, that's nice. Let's take the tapes out and have a look at that. And there we have Arcade Force 4. You get 1 game on each tape. Tape 1, there's tape 2. No stickers on the back, just front stickers. And they just have the US Gold logo and say what's on each side. So this one is Metrocross and Roadrunner. And Arcade Force 4. I think the tape is the only place where it's Arcade Force and a number 4 and not the words 4, which, you know, I like a bit of continuity, so I wasn't too impressed with that, but that's just me being a little bit demanding. So this tape, one side, on black side you get Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, fair enough, but on this side you get Gauntlet and the Deeper Dungeons. Now, isn't Gauntlet a multi-load on its own, and then the Deeper Dungeons is another multi-load, and you load it by loading the first game, and then instead of loading the first levels you put in your other tape to load the Deeper Dungeons, so it's going to be a bit difficult to find where you need to start the tape again. So I think that's pretty tough. They'd have been better off putting 2 games on one of the other sides of the tape and putting Deeper Dungeons on its own side of the tape, I would have thought, but you know, who am I? But yeah, it's a really nice packaging. All helps to keep it all neat after, what is it, 30 odd years. Is it 30 odd years? Well, yeah, it is 30 odd years. It's nearly 40 years. And then we've got this nice user guide. Once again, the copy I bought I'm not sure where I got it from, eBay or Spectrum for Sale, one of the two. Didn't come with the user guide, so I've printed one out again. Now I don't know what size I should have printed it at. I printed it on A4, and it's either more than a bifold, because that's the size that fits in the box, or it could be on A3 but folded down smaller, and so I don't know which size it should be. But I've got to say, you know, one side you get the English language, and I think the other side Italian maybe. Without looking closely, it's quite small lettering, so without looking closely, I'm not sure. But my issue with this guide is that it's got information about the games, and you'd kind of understand that Gauntlet takes up a whole half of the information, but the game itself doesn't. There's not much to Gauntlet, so I'm not sure you need all of these instructions. What you do need is to understand loading, especially the deeper dungeons, and there's nothing on here at all that tells you about how to load the deeper dungeons. Not a thing. Doesn't even mention the deeper dungeons. So whether there was another insert that's not with this, I don't think there was, because I've been on Spectrum Computing where I got this copy from, and I couldn't see anything on there. So that just seems strange. We've got a nice bit of information about all the levels on Roadrunner. That's good. Indiana Jones and Temple Doom, again explaining each of the levels. Metrocross. So it's really nice in terms of the information it gives you on the games and the keys and all of that, but the loading is the issue. You've got this box here that has loading instructions for all 4 machines, but like I say, nothing about a multi-load for the Spectrum. One other thing I did notice on here as well is on Metrocross there is something where it's telling you about the scores. It says if you run on the green tiles, your speed decreases to 1/4. Well, you don't get green tiles on the Spectrum version. It's pretty much blue and white throughout. So yeah, you've not really edited that properly. So yeah, not overly impressed with the manual, but the rest of the packaging really nice. Yeah, so Arcade Force 4. It's looking good so far. Metrocross was released by US Gold in 1987 and is a conversion of Namco's 1985 arcade machine. You control the runner and must race against time to complete a checkerboard obstacle course, avoiding slip zones, pitfalls, tyres, rats and hurdles. To help you reach the goal, some levels feature springboards that hurtle you forward, and you'll also find numerous drinks cans littering the floor. These can be kicked for points or a speed boost, or they can be jumped on to stop the time for a few precious seconds. Metrocross was in the top 10 most popular arcade machines in Japan the year it was released, but I'll be honest that until about 5 years ago I'd never had the pleasure of playing it in an actual arcade. But I did play it on my Spectrum back in the late 80s. I played it a lot. The loading screen is a great interpretation of the cover art and utilises a loading counter to show progress, and it has a stylish black border, though I must admit I do miss seeing the lovely specky loading lines. I was a huge fan of specky Metrocross back in the day, and I often cite it as one of my favourite games of the period. But is that just rose-tinted glasses, or is it as good as I remember? Despite being extremely rusty to start with, the nostalgic warmth was rising up my body. The tangible inertia as you start off slow, picking up speed as you move further to the right of the screen really helps the impression of speed, and whilst the scrolling's a little bit jerky looking back at the footage, while I was playing I really didn't notice it. And the arcade maps appear to have been replicated well. The runner is maybe missing a frame or two, but it's animated really nicely, and the various ways he can come to harm all appear to be present, like being flattened by rolling barrels, flipped into a somersault, or being electrocuted. What is different to the arcade though is the difficulty, as US Gold have been generous with the time allowed to complete a course, meaning that even with my rusty old skills I could still reach at least round 6 without breaking a sweat. Nothing's been skimped on the power-ups either. The skateboard gives you a speed boost and allows you to drive over the black pads that would normally slow you down. The cans are all there too, giving you time, points or speed bonuses, though I couldn't differentiate between them due to the lack of colour, meaning that getting the huge speed boost sometimes came as a surprise and ended no sooner than it had begun, with me face planting into an obstacle. But there's no doubt that my memory of Metrocross was as accurate as the game is of its arcade parent. Wonderfully simple and simply wonderful fun that gets a well-deserved 8 out of 10 from me. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was released by US Gold in 1987, having been converted by Paragon Software. It's a multi-load interpretation of Atari's 1985 coin-op. The levels do a decent job of replicating the excitement and key themes of the film, as you must first rescue captive children from their thuggy captors, then onto the infamous minecart ride, before recovering the Sankara Stone and making your exit. The film was 4 years old by the time this compilation came out, but with its sequel, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, set for a release within a year, indie hype was growing again, and the timing of Temple of Doom's inclusion on the Arcade Force 4 compilation couldn't have been much better. The game reviewed fairly well, getting marks between 6 and 9 out of 10 in the gaming press. However, the dreaded multi-load and the fiendish difficulty were called out as the game's downfall. I'd also include this loading screen, as although it's functional enough, with the indie logo and a loading counter, the main character looks more like my mate Rick's older brother Darren than it does Harrison Ford. After a very long wait for the main game code, we still need to load the level data. Remember to reset your tape counter before level 1 loads, as dying on level 2 will force a reload. So on with our quest for the Sankara Stone, and first impressions are good. It's a small play area, but the HUD's very colourful and the sprites well drawn, but the animation isn't that great, and almost immediately you hit the really tough difficulty level. The idea is to run around the level looking for captive children, whipping open the crates to set them free. There's lots of thuggies all around that you'll need to whip, as well as snakes, wizard type guys who send fireballs after you, and on later levels, bats and other projectiles. You can also swing across small ravines, but I'd forgot about that when I was playing the first level. You do have 5 lives, but it's almost certainly not enough, and to get off the first level I did need to use a cheat, which is to simply type Jimbo into the title screen to be granted infinite lives. About 400 lives later, and I finally got to the bit I'd been waiting for, the runaway mine train. But unfortunately, it's been dumbed down somewhat, and all I did was whip a few times and the level was over. There was no choosing directions to avoid dead ends or broken tracks that you needed to jump across. Just whip crack away. Then on we went to the tomb containing the Sankara Stone. For the second level, you just need to avoid or whip the thuggy guards and snakes, swing over a river of lava, and rescue the Sankara Stone from a moving platform, before making your escape. Once I realised that I needed to stand on the moving bridge and whip upwards to grab it, then this level didn't seem much harder than the mine train, so maybe there is some sense in the unfair difficulty of the first level, or there'd be no longevity at all. To fully complete the game you need to loop the levels 3 times, but given level 1 was hard enough the first time around, I certainly wouldn't be sticking around long enough for a third run. It's a shame really, because the arcade game can be quite fun, but for the home version, the focus has been put on the slightly boring first level, rather than what should have been a really exciting train ride before a challenging finale. But if I'm honest, and I may upset a few indie fans here, Temple of Doom isn't that good a film anyway. My view is that only the even-numbered indie films are any good, so stick that and 6 points in your fedora, Dr. Jones. I'm going to take a break from the reviews just for a minute to let you know about a sister project for the ZX Spectrum Compilation Chart Challenge. CompilationZX.com is a new website dedicated to Spectrum compilations that I'll also use to track my progress in building as big a collection of physical specky multi-game packs as I can. On the site, you'll find links to the latest videos, reviews, articles and blog posts about my latest pickups or key releases or publishers from the glory days of compilations, information on how you can get involved by watching, reading or sharing our content, donating compilations, writing guest reviews or articles, or just spreading the word. The site's also home to the CompZXDB, a database dedicated solely to Spectrum compilations. Currently, it just covers the games in the physical CompZX collection, but over time, I'd like it to grow into a dedicated resource for all Specky compilations. Whilst we do have Spectrum Computing, World of Spectrum and other archive sites, none have a singular focus on compilations like Compilation ZX. Finally, at compilationzx.com you'll also find our swap shop. This is a list of our duplicate compilations that are available for trade against any compilation that's not already in the archive. So if you have any duplicate or unloved comps lying around, have a look and see if we could do a swap. Gauntlet, if there's anyone out there who doesn't know, is a top-down hack-and-slash dungeon crawler, possibly the definitive dungeon crawler, but even when it was released in the arcades by Atari in 1985, it wasn't original. The core design of the game was taken from the 1983 Atari 8-bit game, Dandy, which would later get a conversion to the Speccy via Electric Dreams. The similarities to Dandy ended up in a lawsuit, which Atari settled out of court with Dandy's designer, John Palovich. The Spectrum conversion was released in 1986, and became a smash hit with the public and press, picking up a Crash Smash, Your Sinclair Mega Game, ZX Computing Monster Hit, and 5 out of 5 from Sinclair user, whilst also picking up a Golden Joystick for Game of the Year. With 512 levels, the game was huge and unsurprisingly needed a multiload, even on the 128. Original releases had the game data on side 1 of the tape, and the levels on side 2, which at least eased the process. But for this compilation, all of the data is on one side of the tape, which certainly complicates loading. But what complicates things even more is that the package also includes the Deeper Dungeons add-on, which is also on the same side of the tape. I'm loading the games from an SD card rather than the tape, of course, but there isn't a really elegant way of dealing with multi-loads on a Spectrum Next. So whilst not exactly the same, I do feel some of the pain associated with multi-loads. Unfortunately, there's no loading screen for Gauntlet, but you do get this nice intro screen when loading's complete. It's accompanied by some nice Ben Dalglish music, especially the 128K version, but other than that, the sound is simply functional shots, grunts and bangs. After you've chosen 1 or 2 players, joystick or keys, and the character you'll represent, Gauntlet starts you off gently. The first few levels have limited enemies and simple maps as you roam around, dispatching ghosts and grunts, looking for keys, potions, amulets and exits. Keys, of course, will open doors or locked dungeon walls, allowing access, but also allowing the trapped adversaries to flood out towards you. Potions give you magic power, amulets turn you invisible for a short period, and special potions can also bestow extra shot speed or fighting power. And you can also find food and cider to increase your health, and treasure for points, but watch out, as many of the items can be shot and destroyed before you reach them. A second player can join the fray at any time, but will automatically be assigned a character. If the second player wants to choose a character, then it must be done at the start of the game. The 4 characters are Thyra the Valkyrie, Merlin the Wizard, Thor the Warrior and Questor the Elf, and all are represented well graphically and have a different feel to them with unique weapons, stats and shot speeds. All of the key enemies from the arcade are present too, and are all drawn well. Ghosts are fairly weak but fast, grunts are slow and strong, demons can shoot fireballs, lobbers throw rocks over the walls at you, sorcerers disappear and reappear to frustrate you, and death, he's a right pain in the behind, homing in on you and not leaving until he's drained a large amount of your energy. The best strategy is to destroy the enemy regeneration points, which then allows you to pick off the individual creatures more easily. Whilst the lack of floor graphics does sometimes make the levels look bare, when there are loads of enemies chasing you down, you'll be glad of the visual clarity. Graphics throughout are nice and represent the arcade's look well, and with 512 levels, Gauntlet holds quite a challenge. But for the brave adventurers still wanting more, you can also load in a further 512 levels, known as the Deeper Dungeons. Originally sold as a separate add-on, its inclusion makes this game quite the bargain. Be wary though, the Deeper Dungeons ramps up the difficulty, as most were designed by players who sent in their suggested maps for a chance to be included in the add-on. All in all, with over 1,000 levels available, a 2-player drop-in option, and authentic arcade gameplay, for the equivalent of £2.50, it's only right that Gauntlet and the Deeper Dungeons gets the first ZXCCC 10 out of 10. Before I finish this epic review, I thought I'd just point out a couple of programs that appeared in Your Sinclair. Gauntlet Mapper by David McCandless is a typing program that allowed you to print the game maps in simplified form directly from your Spectrum to an attached printer. It appeared in Your Sinclair issue 20, and then later in Your Sinclair 31, Menno van der Sar took elements of this program and created Gauntlet Editor, a program that allows you to create and play your own Gauntlet dungeons. Both programs are fairly tricky, but also very clever, showing that the modding scene isn't only a PC domain. Roadrunner was a 1985 arcade game from Atari based on the Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons, where you play as the titular Roadrunner and must run continually left, collecting birdseed and avoiding Wile E. Coyote, who's always in chase. The Spectrum conversion was released by US Gold in 1987 to generally positive reviews, though it received a lot of criticism for the finicky controls, small sprites and the dreaded multi-load that meant losing on level 2 forced a reload of the level 1 code, putting a dampener on progress. Roadrunner wasn't widely available in UK arcades, so many will not have experienced it before playing the home conversions. For years, I'd only played the arcade version, emulated using MAME. Unfortunately, the arcade uses a non-standard joystick that doesn't translate well to generic controls. So it wasn't until about 10 years ago at a Retro Games event in Exeter that I finally got to play the game in its dedicated cabinet. And it was a revelation. The game was still incredibly challenging, but using the correct hardware released the game's real fun and playability, so I'm keen to see how the ZX Spectrum version compares. As this wonderful loading screen shows, the friendly cartoon atmosphere is there from the off, even down to listing the creators as just Jim, Dawn and Kev. When the game loads, you can see and hear the high quality presentation. The excellent bezel hides the fact that the play area has been shrunk down, and though small, the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote sprites are easily recognisable and have lots of character. The all-important sense of speed is there too, as Roadrunner glides across the screen in all directions, though he is initially hard to control, meaning that you end up dancing around a pile of seed before giving up on it as Wile gets closer. The aim of the game is simple. Avoid Wile E. Coyote while progressing left and eating all the seed that's left on the ground. But actually pulling it off is fiendishly hard. Keeping Wile at bay is often the easy part, as he isn't that clever. He can be outwitted with a quick change of direction. But making sure not to miss the piles of seed is key to making progress, as missing one moves your seed meter to the left. Miss a fourth and Roadrunner will stop from exhaustion, meaning the Coyote will catch you and you'll lose a life. Acme vans will also get in your way, and Wile will use some of the cartoon favourite power-ups, such as jet-powered roller skates or a pogo stick to gain an advantage. As you progress, the layout gets tougher, with more awkward pathways, some leading to dead ends, and Wile will be more wise to your dodges. And just like Indiana Jones earlier, I did use a cheat to get infinite lives for recording the footage. And I do think infinite life cheats are generally the way forward for multi-loads, as they avoid the need to rewind and reload. The levels are very similar, and I'm not sure how much you'd come back to the game after completing all 5 levels, but given the visuals, the excellent presentation, and the accurate conversion of the arcade machine, I'm going to award Roadrunner 7 out of 10. So that's what I thought. Now let's have a look at what the magazines of the day thought of Arcade Force 4. Surprisingly, for a big name title, I could only find one review of Arcade Force 4, and that was from Crash, issue 52 in May 1988. In its Spring Surprises compilation rundown, Arcade Force 4 gets a short overview where the reviewer reminds us that a pack containing Gauntlet and Gauntlet 2 has just been released, before advising that the original Gauntlet is also available on Arcade Force 4 with 3 other coin-op conversions. It says that all games have initial appeal, but are generally on the boring and repetitive side, which is probably a bit harsh, especially as it gives the individual review scores of the games from when they were first released, and that averages out at a very respectable 77%. So all that's left now is to tot up the scores and see where Arcade Force 4 sits on the fledgling ZX Spectrum compilation chart challenge leaderboard. We already know the individual game scores, helped by that perfect score for Gauntlet, which averages out at 7.75. I've already explained how pleased I was with the packaging and awarded that 8 points. And from a value perspective, the 4.5 games achieved a combined 31 points. And calculating that against a purchase price of £9.99 gives us a pence per point of 29p, which is enough for 8 points. So after Carol Vorderman has totted it all up, that gives Arcade Force 4 an overall rating of 78.5%. Narrowly missing out on a ZXCCC Mega Hit Award, but still achieving the lesser Mega Pack. So now let's have a look at our league table. Only 2 compilations reviewed so far, but we can see that Now Games has already been usurped at the top of the table. And that means that Virgin Games have been replaced at the top of the Constructors table too. But it's early days and there are many more reviews to come. Talking of which, next time I'll be reviewing a budget title, as I posted a poll on the World of Spectrum Facebook group and on my channel to select one of these 4 compilations for under a £5. Check back next time to see which one. As usual, I'll leave some links at the end for the various sites and resources I've used in the making of this episode, and don't forget to stay for the post-credit scene and another Cassette 50 mini review. Welcome back. For this episode's Cassette 50 review, we're looking at Alien. It was the last game on side A of the tape, so most probably didn't even bother loading it. So let's run the program and see what it's like. And there we are. Obviously a Space Invaders clone. Nice small invaders, all different, and a little bit of colour. No animation at all though, and the sound's functional at best. And an unusually long player ship. But how does it play? Not very well, unfortunately. The controls are very sluggish, unless you hold the key down, so moving single steps is difficult. And the bullets drop in 2s or 3s, making it a bit tricky at times. But I found on a few occasions where I lost a life, I was respawned right under another wave of bullets, so more lives were lost unfairly. I did have 3 goes at it to try and complete the level to see if anything changes, but I failed and had no real desire to play it anymore, so we'll leave it at that. Alien is a bare bones Space Invaders clone that does what it does in the most average of ways. I can't imagine even in 1983 that anyone would really want to keep playing it, and on the basis that 5 out of 10 for a Cassette 50 game would be exceptional, Alien scores 1 out of 10. A nice learning exercise for the programmer maybe, but not for the player.